Welcome to Financial Planning Explained. I'm your host, Mike Menninger, certified financial planner, owner, and founder of Menninger and Associates Financial Planning. Here we are in the second episode with Harris Gubin, and I'm going to have to look. Corner Booth Franchise Consulting. I like the corner booth. That's pretty cool. In the first episode, we were just talking about what is a franchise, how does it work, and then we got into the second segment talking about the 6 different types, and we left off talking a little bit more about some of the things that go into it. And I left off, I was thinking about stretch zone. And the reason why is because of the fact that it created a series of questions that I had. For instance, I had one particular instance where literally the person I used to go to all the time, she was terrific. She started her own, and it wasn't a stretch zone franchise. Right. Okay. I'm surprised they didn't sue her, but fine. Then I'm going to go so far as really these are the 2 topics, one of which I consider to be very important. Actually, both of them. We had someone who was a trainer, 2 of them. 2 people, trainers, one of them in their late 20s, one of them in their early 20s, who said, we want to move to this place in Virginia to establish a stretch zone down there. And so I've learned about this because my client went to stretch zone, right, subsequently moved away, and they reached out to him saying, hey, would you be interested in investing in us building another franchise of their own? And so I got involved partly because I was pretty interested in the idea and taking a look at a lot of different things that went into it. One thing that I can say about the franchisor is, boy, they painted a rosy picture. And that rosy picture that they painted referenced growth, like incredible growth. All right. And I look at that and say,
is that legit?
Right. Is that legit? Now, that's kind of the one sort of topic. The franchisor was sort of, and this is going to really lead into where we're going with this, is having a consultant on your side. But the franchisor was, selling it.
Yeah.
Saying, you can do this, and we're going to lock you in to doing 3 franchises in this area, right, but you got to do it within this certain time. Now, I think it was a great consulting, but it was extremely aggressive. And I'm like, you're not going to plan on opening sites 2 and 3 until you demonstrate that site 1 works. That's number 1. Number 2 is, if it's 2 of you and now you have 3 sites, you need a 3rd person. And you need to make sure that that 2nd person's good. Okay. And so that had me bothered in that. Then the other thing is the franchise where that woman left and started her own. That franchise has been struggling since day 1. And basically, how do I know? Because she's working on me and we're talking about it, because I'm fascinated from the business perspective. And basically, it's poorly managed, which goes back to, if you're thinking about being a franchise owner, gosh darn it, you need to be a good manager and business owner, because that person wasn't. Losing staff constantly, it was hard.
Right.
Just the way she described it to me. So, in other words, don't go into a franchise if you're not don't think, hey, business ownership, this is a wonderful thing. I get to sit on my butt and just allow money to come flowing in.
You're right.
I can
Doesn't
tell you,
work that way.
I am a business owner, and anybody who knows me knows that I put in a boatload of time, which helped get it to where it is. Talk about some of those things I was talking about.
There's a lot to unpack there. So when it comes to finding the right franchise for you, okay, I'm on a mission as a franchise coach, consultant, professional in the industry, that everybody should find a reputable coach to work with. Why? Because that coach, that consultant, is going to be your guide. They're going to be your sounding board. Most importantly, they're going to be your advocate, right? Because who are you talking to on the other end of the phone when you're looking at franchise?
The person trying to sell
You're
it to
talking to a salesperson, right? You've got good salespeople. You got a lot of maybe, ulterior motive salespeople. And you need somebody who is going to challenge assumptions and perceptions, right? So you want the coach not to yes you to death. And it's not designed to convince you of doing something, right? A good coach is going to challenge those assumptions and perceptions to give you a different set of lenses to look at things through, right? To help you uncover something that you might not have known was there if you hadn't been pushed a little bit more to explore.
Well,
Because
not to
it's
mention you are knowledgeable in the subject material.
Correct.
That if I am the first time looking for a franchise, you're asking the questions that I didn't even know to think of asking. And I am, by the way, so you know, I am a huge proponent of consultants. You figure almost everything you do is a consultant. Do you have your taxes done? He's a consultant.
Right.
Do you see an attorney for whatever? They're consultants. Right. Financial advisors, we're consultants. Financial planners, we're consultants.
Right.
The electrician who comes to your house and fixes whatever,
right.
He's a consultant.
Right.
They're experts in their field
Yep.
for good reason because they provide a value that you may not otherwise be able to have. You don't have to sell me on it.
And what I always say is, what do all great sports players have in common? Right?
A good agent.
They have a great agent. They all have coaches, right? You're a golfer. You know, all the great golfers out there, they all have a coach that they're working with.
I am a golfer. I am not a great golfer.
Okay. Debatable. So you want that person in your corner to help you explore, because when you start to first look at franchising, it's not about purchasing a franchise. It's about exploration. Most of my clients that come to me are trying to figure out, hey, do I want to be a business owner? And if I do, right, I've always thought about it. I've always had the itch. What's going to be the right fit for me, right? So here's the challenge there. How do you find the right fit? There's 4,000 concepts. You Google franchising, you get 1 billion results, right? And then everybody's an award winner. Everybody's a number one this, a top 5 that. It's like, how do I figure out what's right for me? Okay. So that's when a good coach can sit down with you, okay, and start to take you through a methodical exploration process to say, if you could design the perfect business model for yourself, what would that look like? What elements would you like to see in that model? Okay. And then you take all that information, the coach digests that information, and then they come back to their client for the franchise matching conversation and say, listen, this is what you told me. These concepts I'm going to present to you are in alignment with what you shared with me. Some will have some of the elements that you're looking for. Hopefully, they'll have many of the elements that you're looking for. And then we explore, okay? The best clients are educated clients. Mm-hmm. So great. Making sure that they are provided with a lot of supporting documentation. The more you know, the more confident you get, the better the questions you ask, and it makes for a much better, a much more enjoyable process because you know what to expect and you're well informed. And when you're well informed, you feel good about the decision making that you're going through.
So how does your fee work? Are you more or less an hourly basis, a defined scope of work, or if they find a franchise that you get a piece of the action? How's that work?
So the industry standard is that coaches, consultants like myself, were compensated by the franchisor when a client goes into that model. So the client doesn't have to shell out any money. So similar to a realtor or an executive search firm, right? They're finding you the role. You're not paying them for the role. That business is paying.
Okay, fair enough. And then, obviously there's a lot of facets that you talked about as the ideal franchise for somebody else. But let me tell you something. It needs to be something I enjoy. Like if you gave me something that was like IT, technology, I wouldn't enjoy that. It's
not your bag.
Right. It's not my bag. And so that obviously has to play into it.
Absolutely. So a lot of times clients talk about passion, but I heard an interview with Mark Cuban, and his advice is don't follow your passion, follow what you're good at. Because when you're good at something, it builds on itself and you really start to enjoy it, right? But you have to like the concept, and exploration allows you to figure out, hey, am I going to enjoy this, right? So the gold in franchise exploration is the conversations that you get to have with franchisees, which brings me back to the point that you were making about, hey, you need to be a good business. You need to be good at business. You need to be a good manager. Most people who go into business ownership within a franchise system have never owned a business. So if you've never owned a business, how can you become a good business manager? How can you manage and lead a team? How do you go out and sell the product? How do you learn about the product? How do you market the product? So it's overwhelming. The idea behind going into franchising is somebody is parlaying their skill set, right? They're 20, 30 years in the corporate space. Their accolades, their business know-how, they're taking that, they're parlaying it into that business model and following that recipe for success. So let's say, for example, you're great in sales, okay, but you don't know anything about marketing. What you're trying to figure out with that franchisor is, do they provide me with the tools that I need to be a success when it comes to the marketing aspect, right? Or let's say I'm good at managing people, but I'm a little bit of an introvert and I'm not great at sales or networking, all right? You're looking for, from the franchisor, are they giving me the tools to help me become a better networker and how to position my product or service so I can sell it?
Right.
Those are the things that you're looking for. Also, you talked about having multiple locations. So when you start to look at a model where you're going to have multiple locations and you want to scale, you can't be in all places. You can't be in multiple places at the same time, right? So you do have to find the right manager. Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes that takes time. Sometimes you get lucky and you hit it right out of the gate. What you're looking for from the franchisor is, how do you help me find the right manager? Okay. What are the tools that you give me for me to put out that requisition? Where to put out that requisition to find the manager? What are the interview questions that I should be asking? So forth and so on. But you're going to know all of that because you're going to ask those questions before you decide to invest in that model.
If you know the questions to ask, which
That's
is where
why
you come
need
into
a good coach or
Right.
consultant. Exactly.
I could see that.
Absolutely.
Let's take a break here, and
Okay.
then we'll hit our final segment.
Great.
Stay tuned. We'll be back with you in just a few moments.
Do you keep up regularly with your investments? Where exactly are your hard-earned dollars going? Are you financially prepared for an emergency?
I'm Mike Menninger, founder of Menninger & Associates Financial Planning. We believe that education and knowledge are powerful, and we want our clients to understand why we are making the recommendations that we make. It's your money, and you deserve to know where it's going, because it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. So call us today to discuss your financial concerns. Welcome back to Financial Planning Explained, as we continue to discuss all of the facets associated with owning a franchise. And what Harrison was pointing out when we last left off was that there's different areas that you may be good at and you may not be good at, and you want to make sure that the franchisor is filling in the gaps. And I was thinking about that. You know, I may not. They may have software that's good for scheduling for the stretch zone. Okay. Right. I may be weak or strong in sales, but weak in marketing. But if they're providing the marketing like Taco Bell and McDonald's and all these, then that takes that off my plate.
Yep.
And I got to imagine that there's business software that they may be able to help. But to your point is having the right people on staff. And again, it depends on what it is. That is an important facet of it. Is that something you can help with as far as identifying, or is that typically the franchisor?
It's typically the franchisor.
Okay.
Absolutely. You're investing in that model because the franchisor is providing you with the things that you deem are necessary for yourself to succeed, or they are providing you with the tools that you don't have. But once they provide you with the tools, because you're a capable business professional coming out of corporate, that you're going to be able to adapt and pick those up and run with that model.
Okay. So let's talk about one that I was so pumped, dude. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I went to this virtual reality in Phoenix.
Okay.
All right, dude. It was a 32 by 52 foot room. It was called roaming virtual reality. Normally, you can go to a Dave and Buster's and you're tethered in this little booth and you're shooting. Here, you're with 8 people and you're tooling around the room. And I will tell you, the only thing about it is I did a half an hour and I said, this was so cool. We did the next one. And after that hour, the next day I was sore because I'm crouching, shooting things and
Body's
looking.
tense.
I would love nothing more than to be the person overseeing these people doing these things because of the fact that, but it was the coolest thing that I ever done. And I said, I need to have one of these.
Nice.
Okay. I literally explored it. Okay. And it was a combination of not being concerned about what's the next one that's going to come out because there are none in the Philadelphia region.
Mm-hmm.
I could plant one in King of Prussia, which is a mecca of uppity younger people, which is perfect for. And I chickened out. You know, it's not totally out of it, but where do you come in to help? Like I may still explore this.
Right.
Okay. What is the role you play? If I said, Harrison, I identified this VR and I know exactly the name of it.
Right.
I'm thinking of doing this. I call you up and say, let's go look at this.
Right.
Okay. I come to you. Now, where do we go?
It's a great example. And I just had this conversation the other day.
With the VR?
No, with a gentleman who found a kids program. Okay. It's a newer model. It's an emerging brand. So he said to me, is this a good model? I said, honestly, I don't know. I said, but my question for you and the question you should be asking yourself is, what are your goals for the business, right? What do you want to get out of this business that you're going to go into? So there's a methodical exploration process that everybody should go through. It's a kind of industry standard, right? So the first thing is you should have an introductory call with your coach, right? It's almost like a chemistry call.
You being the coach.
Right. Or anybody else that's reputable out there, right? The chemistry call. Do I fit with that person? Do I like what they're saying, right? Very similar to the work that you do with your clients, right? Are we feeling good about one another? Okay. So that's an introductory call, typically lasts 45 minutes. Then I provide them with a worksheet, a work style, a work-life balance worksheet, and an assessment. Okay. The assessment is great. It's from a reputable organization called Zoracle. Okay. It was created in conjunction with the Stanford Research Institute. Now, it doesn't tell you whether or not you're going to be a good business owner. It tells you what you're going to have a bend or a lean towards. Okay. And it really pulls out some good information, that you can use and apply in the exploration process, not only for me as the coach, but for the person exploring, right? Then we have our deeper dive call. The deeper dive, that's the second step. That's typically an hour-long conversation. I'm going through a script of questions, okay? And it sounds scripted because it is, because I like to make sure I hit everything. But it's questions like, what would you, if you could create your ideal franchise, or business model, what would that look like? Do you want B2B, business to business? Do you want B2C, business to consumer? Are you open to both? Do you like to network, or do you look at it as a necessary evil? Are you open to networking if you've never done it before, right? How about the marketing piece? Do you want something where it's retail, home-based, small office? What's your investment level, right? What are you comfortable investing? Because I don't want to present you with things that are going to, keep you up.
Yeah, if it's going to cost me $200,000 and either A, I don't have it, or B, I don't want to risk it.
Exactly. and so forth and so on. So it's very, very in-depth. And then as we shared before, then we go into the franchise matching conversation. Once we decide which concepts to explore, my suggestion is you explore 2 concepts at once, because if one of them falls out of favor, then you slide another concept right in there. And then as you're exploring those concepts, I'm supporting you and providing you with the information that you need to help you through that process. So we may do check-ins once a week for 10 minutes or every 2 weeks for 20 minutes. Some clients, they may only call me once a month. Some clients may call me once a week. So whatever it takes to help them feel good about the exploration process. And I'll say one more thing, like the idea is they're getting enough information and the right information to help them make a well-informed decision, which could look like, hey, great concept, I want to move forward, or I like the concept, but what else is out there?
By the way, sometimes the best deals are the ones you don't take. And to your point, this particular one that I explored, or you helped me explore, may not be either suitable for me, there may be too much risk, or there's just risk whatever, that it might not be the right thing, and that's the deal you let go.
Exactly.
And that might be the best one. The best deal you ever made sometimes are the ones you don't make.
Absolutely.
So, I was going to ask you next. It was on that same topic.
One
so keep
thing
going.
that your audience should know is that one of the questions they should be asking themselves is, does my family support me in this endeavor? Does my spouse or significant other support me? Because business ownership isn't easy, okay? Franchising makes it easier, but in the beginning, it's hard. I always say it's short-term pain for long-term gain. Right? There's a great book out there. It's called The Millionaire Next Door. I don't know if you've ever read it.
Yeah.
But like, I think the statistic is 60% of all business owners are millionaires, or 66% of all millionaires are business owners. Because, and sometimes that astounds people because we think of millionaires as athletes, singers, comedians, CEOs of major companies.
Right.
But really, the average millionaire is totally under the radar. They live next door. And I'll tell you one other thing. When I first got into this business over a decade ago, I thought everybody's goal was to make $1 million. I thought everybody was going to tell me that. That couldn't be further from the truth. Most people want to either make what they were making. Sometimes they do have a higher goal, but they want the freedom and flexibility to do the things that they want to do for them and their families. And that's what business ownership is. That's what I hear from clients over and over again.
And that's absolutely true, but careful what you ask for.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a business owner.
It all falls on you.
Work-life balance is work balance, work-sleep balance. That's what it is. But the reality of it is that there are definitely rewards associated with being a business owner. Being a franchise owner is a business owner.
Right.
You just got somebody kind of gave you on the platter the business.
Playbook, exactly.
And there's a lot to be said about that. So how long typically does the due diligence process start? Like if I were to say, hey, you know what?
Yep.
And I do want to talk to you about this one, is from the time that I start, how long is it? I'm guessing got to be 6 months.
So it's actually typically less, but I've seen clients go longer over the last year and a half. So typically from the time we find a concept that you like, right? Like it hits 3 to 4 months. That is a typical time frame from the time you start to explore till the time you sign your franchise agreement, about 3 to 4 months. What I've seen over the course of the last year and a half is 6 to 9 months for people making a decision. So, and that was confirmed by, the woman who created this Zoracle assessment, because she gets a lot of data from not only other coaches and franchisors that use it. The timeline has increased. The other thing I wanted to share with you is you made a good point of just a couple of seconds ago about being a business owner. You'll often hear in franchising, you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself, because you have the backing of the franchisor. And hopefully you've got a really good support group of other fellow franchisees that are going through all the things that you're going through. So that's another thing to look at. Is it collegial, right? Is it supportive? Are the franchisees willing to help one another in the system that I'm looking at?
Well, it's interesting because, I think about it and I equate it to, most of the fees that we generate are based upon the value of the assets. We assess a fee. If you think about the franchisor is actually on the same team, because if they're getting 8% of my revenue, they want my revenue to be higher.
Exactly.
So they're a coach to me.
Absolutely. So the only reason why a franchisor is in business is to make money. So in theory, if they're a good franchisor and they're providing you with really good support, you in turn are going to do better and better and make more money for yourself and for them. Okay?
Of course.
However, you got to find the right franchisor that really does provide solid support.
Right.
That's the most important piece.
And that is something that you probably are capable of being able to assess because you've dealt with a bunch of different franchisors. You can identify the one that's truly in it for you and the one that's truly in it for that.
Right. And also my clients, just because I view it one way or I've had a relationship with that franchisor, my advice is always the same. You're in control. You are the one exploring, and you're going to look at it through a different set of lenses that I do. Right. What I can tell you is you're going to hear good things about the franchisors that we talk to. Now, not everybody's going to be a top performer. It's like, what do they say in corporate? 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people. So typically what you'll find is you have a third of the franchisees that are top performers. Then you have the middle of the pack, and then you have the bottom performers. However, with the bottom performers, the feedback I get from clients when they do exploration is the bottom performers always say the same thing as to why they're not performing. It's not the franchisor's fault. They will always say, I'm not following the recipe for success. I tried to do X, Y, and Z, and it didn't work. And that's what you hear over and over and over again with the franchisors under my umbrella, right? Again, there's plenty that you've heard these horror stories with, but typically that is people who have gone online, found a franchise, didn't have an advocate, did it because they like to eat popcorn and, got to sell a lot of popcorn. Right. So,
well, it's interesting. Is it because the franchisor doesn't have a good playbook, or the franchisee thinks they're smarter than the franchisor, or sometimes both?
If it's a reputable franchisor and the franchisee isn't performing well, it's because they think they know better.
Right.
Okay. If you don't want to follow the recipe for success, that's okay. You don't have to. But don't go into franchising, because the top performers that you speak to are all going to tell you the same thing. I followed the recipe for success. I followed the recipe for success. I did what they told me to do, and that's why I am doing so well. You'll hear that over and over again. Now, with a poor performing franchisor, okay, one that's not reputable, so to speak, you could have a great franchisee, potentially an operator, but the franchisor is just terrible, And that's the challenge in this space, is how do you find good concepts to explore? And that's where a good coach comes into play to help guide you through that process. But ultimately, the franchisee gets to speak to the franchisor. The person exploring gets to speak to the franchisor. They read the marketing material. They join the webinars live or pre-recorded. They get to speak to the franchisees, right? You should speak to a handful of other franchisees that are already in the space. You get to go to Discovery Day, which is kind of the icing on the cake, to meet the executive team, pepper them with any last kind of remaining questions. So you get to do a lot of due diligence throughout the process to really make a well-informed decision.
Sounds good. I tell you what, this is exciting me, because I'm going to talk to you, which we're done, about the one that I still have not thrown out. It's been because I'm telling you what, every time somebody's going to Phoenix, I'm like, dude, you got to check that out. It's the coolest thing in the world. But
Is it going to fit what you're trying to accomplish, right? You've been successful with all the work that you do, guiding people through their financial challenges, right? And now it's like, all right, well, hey, do I want to expand the portfolio as a business owner and do something new? And we could talk about those things and see if it's the right fit.
No, I want one around here because there's none around here. There's only 9 in the country. I want one around here. And unless somebody else does it, I got to do it so I can play.
I might push back on that, but we'll talk.
Anyway, thank you very much, Harrison. That's been terrific. We've wrapped up our second episode, if you can believe that. What I'd like to do is take a moment, look into the camera, just tell people a little bit about yourself and how they may be able to reach out to you.
Sure. It's easy. I'm the only Harris Gubin on LinkedIn. You'll see my picture.
Is it Harris? I've been calling you Harrison.
That's all right. Everybody calls me Harry, Harrison.
All right, it's
all
Harris.
across the board. Okay.
Forgive
I have
me.
had every nickname in the book. And with the last name of Gubin, that extends far beyond the nicknames. Gooby, G, Scooby, Gooby, Goober, everything. So Harris Gubin on LinkedIn. My picture will be there. I recently rebranded to Corner Booth Franchise Coaching. My number is 267-872-9342, cornerboothfc.com. Cornerboothfc for franchisecoaching.com. Those are the easy ways to find me.
And do people need to be local to you because we're in the Philadelphia area, or can someone from Wisconsin reach out to you and be able to utilize you?
All across the country. In fact, most of my clients are not in the Philadelphia market.
All right, good, because we reach the entire country with this podcast.
It's amazing.
So,
it's huge.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Harris. And forgive me for calling you Harrison all day. It was great. This was very informative.
Good.
Thank you for joining. I hope everybody learned something new. I think this is really cool. It's an opportunity to be a business owner, but again, go in recognizing there's advantages and disadvantages to being a business owner. Okay. The disadvantages are the business can take control of your life. Okay. But be that as it may, the advantages go with it. Flexibility, freedom, potentially making more money, et cetera, et cetera. But, I hope you learned something, and thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful day. Have a great day.